Thank you for having us at today's workshop. This presentation will provide an introduction to the Gateway to Global Aging Data's pre-statistical harmonization of the HCAP studies around the world and the harmonized HCAP data files that we have created. I'm Cody Young, and I am a programmer from the Gateway to Global Aging Data team at the University of Southern California. I will be presenting on behalf of the Gateway team. Because of the breadth of studies collecting such broad data in so many different countries can appear overwhelming, the Gateway to Global Aging Data initiative was started 15 years ago as a tool for researchers to understand the information collected in the health and retirement studies around the world and how to obtain access to these data. We also realize that it takes a lot of work to understand just one study, and even more work to understand these studies in relation to each other. To encourage and facilitate more exciting research done comparatively across countries, the Gateway was built to be one central platform for researchers to tap into this network of the health and retirement studies. We originally began with just harmonizing the core sister HRS studies and have since expanded to harmonize additional surveys, like the life history, end of life, and now the HCAP surveys. The Gateway provides an overview of the HRS family of studies. This includes an overview of the study itself, the survey questionnaires that were fielded, flowcharts that illustrate questionnaire skip patterns, and a search function that can be used to look up specific keywords or topics. We've built cross-study concordance tables of specific research survey topics and created in-depth documentations for cross-study comparability. We also provide survey statistics and contextual data, which are shown in interactive graphs and tables. Our latest initiative is the Policy Explorer, which seeks to understand the regulatory and policy environment for the individual at different points in the survey. For example, pension policies have changed drastically in the past 20 years, so this Policy Explorer provides information on what specific pension policy was in place at a specific time. We are also actively working on adding long-term care and education policies to the Explorer. We have a publication search for published papers that have utilized the HRS family of surveys in their analyses. And lastly, we also provide harmonized data, which are research-ready datasets that we have developed for a subset of information from each survey with some of the most commonly used variables. Pre-statistical harmonization for the LASI dot in India, ELSA HCAP in England, The HRS HCAP in the United States and MaxCog in Mexico have now been completed. Preliminary imputations and cognitive factor scores have been created for the LACIDAD, HRS HCAP, and ELSA HCAP, and have now been finalized for the LACIDAD and ELSA HCAP. As such, the completed harmonized LACIDAD data file is now available for download and has been released on our g2aging.org website. We've released version 8.3 of the harmonized LACIDAD, which incorporates all survey data from Wave 1, including imputations for most missing observations for the cognitive test variables and the informant reports about the individual's cognitive decline and cognitive factor scores. It also includes 2 additional sections that were specifically constructed for researchers that focus on polygenic risk scores and consensus clinical dementia ratings. The harmonized ELSA HCAP also includes our harmonized variables, imputations, and cognitive factor scores. We expect this harmonized data file to be released to all researchers in the near future on ELSA's website and the UK Data Access website. This data creation code to create the harmonized ELSA HCAP is now available on the g2aging.org website. The pre-statistical harmonized HRS HCAP data file is now being reviewed by the study team. Preliminary imputations have now been completed for the MHOX MaxCog in Mexico and is currently being finalized. We are currently working on both the pre-statistical harmonization and imputations for the ChileCog in Chile and the pre-statistical harmonization for the Charles HCAP in China. Planned future harmonization works will include the Share HCAP in Europe and Israel, Tilda HCAP in Ireland, Nicola HCAP in Northern Ireland, and CADAS in Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic. This table provides a brief study overview for Wave 1 of the HCAP studies that the Gateway is currently working on. This table will soon be available on the Gateway website as well. Age thresholds of eligible persons vary from 55 to 65 years. In high-income countries like the US and England, the HRS HCAP and the ELSA HCAP require folks to be 65 years and older. In low and middle income countries like China, India, and Chile, the age threshold was 60 years, and the MaxCog had the lowest age threshold of 55 years and older. They must have participated in the previous core interview. Please note that the Charles HCAP was conducted as part of the 2018 core interview rather than as a separate sub-study. Informants were nominated by the respondent in most studies, but in the MHOS MaxCog and the Charles HCAP, they were identified by the interviewer. All respondent interviews were conducted in person face-to-face, while most informant interviews were conducted either in person or by telephone. The ELSA HCAP instead asked informants to complete a paper self-completion interview or a telephone interview. The MHOS MaxCog and the Charles HCAP didn't use telephone interviews, as their protocols asked to find an available person at the time of the interview. Sample sizes for most studies range between 2,000 to a little over 4,000 completed interviews. A larger sample size is seen in the Charles HCAP, as the Charles HCAP administered a briefer battery of cognitive tests to all age-qualifying respondents of Charles. Lastly, the LACIDAD collected venous blood-based biomarkers, and the MaxCog collected both venous and dry blood biomarkers. In the HCAP surveys that we are currently working on, we've identified several core content areas that are available across the HCAP studies. Our harmonized HCAP data files include harmonized variables that are based on these areas. Most studies include demographic-related questions such as age and gender. In our harmonized data files, we also pull in relevant demographic information from the core surveys. All HCAP studies use the same shared set of assessments for their cognition and informant report questionnaires. Please note that the number of questions and the type of questions asked in the shared set of assessments do differ for each study depending on the local context. 4 out of the 5 studies include health and physical measures related variables, which includes information related to depressive symptoms and self-rated abilities as examples. The LACIDAD has also released its data on blood-based biomarkers. Another table that we are currently working on for the Gateway's Harmonization project is a table on the test administration differences in the cognitive tests. While studies may use the same cognitive tests, how they are administered to the respondents may differ, which can affect their comparability across studies. This table is still a work in progress, but the picture shown here indicates what it currently looks like. Like the HCAP comparison table, we list the test name, a brief test description, the harmonized variable names, and a brief description of the test administration differences for each study. For example, in the object naming task, interviewers in the HRS HCAP, LACIDAD, and ELSA HCAP point to physical objects, while interviewers in the Charles HCAP point to objects that are shown on the screen. Interviewers in the MEXCOG and CHILICOG show cards with the objects printed on them and ask the respondents to identify the objects. In the repeating a phrase task, interviewers in the HRS HCAP, LACIDAD, and Charles HCAP can repeat the phrase up to 5 times as long as the respondent has not attempted to repeat the phrase. In the ELSA HCAP, the phrase can be repeated up to 5 times. And in the MEXCOG and CHILICOG, the interviewer is only allowed to say the phrase once. For all studies, respondents are only allowed 1 attempt to repeat the phrase. In the reading and following task, interviewers in all of the studies hand respondents a page that has the command written on it, and the respondent is asked to do what it says. However, both the LACIDAD and the CHILICOG provide an alternative test in case respondents are illiterate. In the LACIDAD, interviewers perform the action, and the respondents are asked to copy what the interviewers did. The same command is used in both alternatives in the LACIDAD. In the CHILICOG, different commands are used in the 2 alternative tests. For illiterate respondents, interviewers show an image on the card with the command being performed, and the respondents are asked to copy the command that the image is showing. In the executive functioning task, interviewers in the HRS HCAP, LACIDAD, and the Charles HCAP are allowed to repeat the instructions if the respondents did not hear them. In the ELSA HCAP, MaxCog, and ChiliCog, interviewers can only read the instructions once to the respondents. In the writing or saying a sentence task, we could not identify any test administration differences in the HRS HCAP, LASIDAD, ELSA HCAP, MaxCog, ChiliCog, and Charles HCAP. Like the reading and following a command task, LASIDAD provides an alternative task if respondents are illiterate. Interviewers ask respondents to say something about their house using a full sentence. Once the pre-statistical harmonization step is completed, we work with our team and our collaborators on imputations and producing factor score analysis variables. At the end of this entire process, we package all the variables we've created into our Harmonized HCAP datasets, which we release to the public to provide comparable research-ready data files. Harmonized variables contain a subset of the original survey variables and are defined as similarly as possible across all harmonized datasets. Each harmonized dataset combines all available HCAP waves, and each individual is counted as one record. An intuitive variable naming convention is used across all harmonized data. For example, the variable r1go_score indicates the respondent's total score for the go-no-go task in wave 1. Study-specific variable names are also employed to indicate slight differences. For example, the variable r1._m is a summary score measure that combines the 2-point questions and has a scoring range of 0 to 2 in wave 1 of the MHAS MaxCog. Unlike the other studies, the MaxCog scores these questions as 0 to 2 rather than 0 to 1. An _m has been added to the end of the variable to indicate this difference. All variables have been built to account for any survey skip pattern, and each dataset is accompanied with a harmonized codebook, which provides detailed information on how the harmonized variables were created and summary statistics for most variables. As companion to the harmonized datasets, we also release detailed codebooks. These documentations introduce the harmonization project and study and provide an overview of the survey timing, survey design, and the sampling framework. In addition, the codebooks discuss the strategies used for weighting, imputation, and construction of the harmonized domain-specific cognition variables in detail. They also detail how each harmonized variable is created and its comparability across studies. Harmonized variables are also grouped into sections based on research domains. The picture on the left shows the cover page for the Harmonized ELSA HCAP codebook, and the picture on the right lists the table of contents in the Harmonized ELSA HCAP codebook. In each section of the Harmonized codebook, we summarized each set of variables and provided descriptive statistics for most variables. This example shows self-rated abilities variables that are available in the Harmonized ELSA HCAP data file. The ELSA HCAP asks respondents to self-rate their health, eyesight, hearing, smell, and memory. Here, the sample size, mean, standard deviation, and the minimum and maximum values are provided for each variable. Additionally, as you can see, we have assigned special missing values to these variables. A special missing value is a way to indicate missingness with some more information. For the harmonized self-rated health variable, we assign .d to indicate don't know responses. Additional special missing values that we also assign include .r for refused and .s for skipped. We also detail the variable creation and any assumptions made in that creation. Continuing our example from the previous slide, this is where you would go in the codebook to find out exactly how we created the variables for self-reported general health status, eyesight, hearing, sense of smell, and their memory. We also highlight any differences between waves of that study and differences between this variable and the harmonized HCAP versions of that variable. Here, we see that no crosswave differences are known for the harmonized self-rated ability variables in the ELSA HCAP. This is because only one wave of the ELSA HCAP has been fielded and released publicly. Thus, our harmonized ELSA HCAP data file version A includes data from wave 1 only. Additionally, we see that these questions are not fielded in wave 1 of the HRS HCAP. ELSA HCAP, LASIDAD, and the MHAS-MEXCOG all ask respondents to self-report their memory, but different self-reported ability questions are asked across the studies. Instead of asking respondents to self-report their general health status, eyesight, hearing, and sense of smell, the LASIDAD also asks additional questions on whether the respondent has any difficulty in hearing or seeing, how respondents self-reported their sleep quality the night before, how their memory compares at the time of the interview to 2 years ago, how they would self-report their mental abilities, and how they would compare their mental abilities at the time of the current interview to 2 years ago. The MHAS-MEXCOG asked respondents to also compare their memory at the time of the current interview to 2 years ago. The last thing we include in the harmonized codebook sections for each variable is a list of all the variables from the originating survey dataset that we used in the creation of that harmonized variable. This information is helpful if you want to go back to the study and look at the questionnaire or the study's codebook to see exactly what variable we used and why. We try to be as transparent as possible on how we create these harmonized datasets. We are happy to announce the Harmonized LASIDAD version 8.3 data file and codebook, the data creation codes for the preliminary pre-statistical Harmonized HRS HCAP and Harmonized MEXCOG, and the Harmonized ELSA HCAP data creation code and codebook are now available for download on the gateway. Although the complete harmonized data files for the HRS HCAP, MEXCOG, and ELSA HCAP are not yet available for download, you are able to create these pre-statistical harmonized datasets by downloading and running the data creation codes that we have provided. To access these, please make sure you register as a user on our Gateway website. Once you are logged in, you can head to the download page where we have provided links for where to go to download the harmonized LASIDAD data file and codebook and the data creation codes for the preliminary pre-statistical harmonized HRS HCAP, MEXCOG, and ELSA HCAP. We will always announce new dataset releases, so please make sure to opt in to receive announcements when you sign up. If you're already a Gateway user, you're able to log in and adjust your preferences for this as well. The HCAP comparison table can be found on the Gateway website at g2aging.org under the Concordance Across Surveys tab. We will continue to update this table as we work on harmonizing more HCAP studies, so please check back often. We hope this presentation was a helpful introduction to the Gateway to Global Aging Data's pre-statistical harmonization process and the harmonized HCAP data files that we create. If you have any questions about our harmonized datasets, please feel free to reach out to us through our help desk at help@g2aging.org. Thank you for listening.